Yes, I have been asked by our chair and vice chair to serve in the role of chair emeritus today. It is 3:48, so I will call us to order. Does anybody need an agenda? Yeah. Sure. Anybody else? You have one? I have one. All right, and I flipped the switch because I saw that we had a quorum with council members Allen, Bradford, Cash, Hurt, Nash, and myself. We do not have a chair's report today since we don't have a chair. I will check quickly to see, is there anyone interested in offering a staff report? All right, seeing none, we will move on to resolutions. And it looks like we can do a pretty good consent agenda on those. We've got a substitute on one of them. But we'll take the rest, I think. Unless, well, let me just see. Does anybody need to pull any of these from consent? The only one that I saw that I thought may have some questions was Councilmember Halls, and he is not here, so I'm not sure if we can take them.
I just had a question on 1626.
Okay, yeah, all right, well, that's your bill, so you can ask me.
Okay.
All right, I'll pull that one off.
And then 1630.
1630?
1631.
Also your bill, so we can take those. And then,
And the Councilmember Halls.
Councilmember Halls, we can have to defer that one. So let's just try a quick one. We'll take RS 2022 1616, RS 2022 1627. Well, I guess it's just those. Well, we'll just go through them. All right, so RS 2022-1616 approves an interlocal agreement between the Emergency Communications District and the Metropolitan Government for services and reimbursement of costs pertaining to enhanced 911 services. I would accept a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Any discussion? All four say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Put that one to 0. All right, we are on RS 2022-1626, accepts a federal COVID relief funds for transportation improvements grant and approves an intergovernmental agreement from the Tennessee Department of Transportation to the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure for work in connection with the construction of pedestrian safety and multimodal intersection improvements at various locations. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Councilmember Allen?
I just wanted to hear someone articulate how this supports the Vision Zero action plan.
Miss Alacron was out.
Oh,
She was out.
Yeah, I guess it may be worth getting her if we don't have anybody else who can speak to that, because I think similar to Councilmember Allen, I would be interested to know which intersections, if those have already been identified as a part of this plan. All right, let's see. Is there any objection to me proceeding and we'll revisit that one?
Yeah.
Please
All right,
do.
I'm gonna, I guess we'll leave that.
Roll to the hill.
Yeah, rolled, and we'll go on. RS 2022-1627 approves a congestion management air quality improvement grant from the Tennessee Department of Transportation and the Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure for the acceptance of work to implement a traffic management center. May I get a motion, please?
Move.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just one, where does the Traffic Management Center sit?
That is a great question, so we will again wait.
It's the Howard building.
It's in the
It
Howard.
is, okay. Well, there you go. Councilmember Allen, anything else?
And so NDOT is not housed in the Howard building. Is there
No, it's just,
9 new people that will?
right, we have moved several of our engineers over there that are supporting the traffic management center, so they will be permanently located there.
Okay, I'm glad we're getting that.
All right. So that will be housed at Howard. Very good. Councilmember Allen, any other questions on that? All right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none. Any abstentions? Very good. And I see Director Alarcon here.
1626, they wanted to know that the intersections, and here it is, it's in the analysis right here. That effect, and they want to know how Vision Zero will be affected with 1626, the COVID relief grant.
Okay.
There was, the first question was how this would affect the Vision Zero implementation plan, and then just wanted to make sure we knew where, correspondingly, where these intersections were.
Okay, so thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Sorry for my tardiness. I was sitting out there, so I apologize.
Well, sometimes we're in the big room.
Yeah, exactly, so I got a little bit lost. So this is actually coming on before the Vision Zero. So anything that we do will be on top of what is actually listed on here. So this is actually a nice plus, but then there'll be additional things that will be part of the implementation plan that we will actually be bringing before y'all at the next transportation and infrastructure as far as what the implementation plan means and the projects aligned with that, especially year one. And then in this case, this particular project, because this is going to be COVID relief dollars that we're receiving, this is going to be improvements at the Dickerson Pike and Hart Lane, and also Dickerson Pike and Lucille Street, Rosa Park Boulevard and Hume. So this is really looking at us doing intersection improvements, crosswalks, signage, that kind of stuff. So it's a lot of work that we're doing at multiple intersections through the COVID dollars.
So I do have a question about that. Rosa Parks and Hume, we had approved traffic signalization as a part of Hume House. I just wanted to know if this means that these funds will be applied to an intersection that was already planned for improvements, or how that works.
I am not sure. I know that this is going to be, so this is Rosa Parks and Hume, so I'll have to go back and check on that one.
Okay.
But we're not duplicating any efforts, that much I do know.
Okay.
So this might be additional items or additional improvements on top of the signalization, but there
Got
is
it.
no duplication of efforts.
All right, thank you. I will
You're very
follow up with you outside with that. Councilmember Allen, does
I'm
that
good.
answer your questions? All right, any other discussion on that one?
Signalization at Rosa Parks and Hume.
Yes. So basically, right now, you have, as you are coming westbound on Hume,
Right.
You hit a pretty blind intersection where you've got Evergreen at Worthen on one side and Worthen on the other.
Right.
And so Hume House is adding several hundred new apartments mid-block on what was a vacant lot. And so as a part of that planning process, they identified Hume as a new traffic signal.
Right, but it's not, Hume is not on the west side. It doesn't go across Rosa Parks.
It doesn't, but it's a terrible turn. Well, it
Right.
does get you across.
It gets you across, but it doesn't go into the,
That's right.
right. So it's basically just on one side.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you have other discussion on that?
Huh?
Did you have other discussion on that?
Yeah, I'm just trying to, so it's gonna be a signal light between Monroe and Garfield.
That's correct.
Is it gonna be timed, I mean, cause I know that I've seen that occur in Bellevue where we are accommodating people coming in and out of a residential community, but it pretty much is a nuisance because it's only during certain times of the day that there's really a lot of busy traffic. So I'm just wondering if this is going to be targeted to the, highest peak of traffic, or is it going to be constant all day?
So it's meant to be geared toward the peak time of the pedestrian movements so that it's safe for the pedestrian traffic. So if the peak of pedestrian move is at the peak of traffic, of vehicular traffic, yes ma'am, then it is going to have that disruption, but it's meant to provide the safety elements that we need to put in place to protect the pedestrians, who's the most vulnerable person on the road at that time. But it wouldn't be at all times. It should only be activated at the time when a pedestrian actually leads it.
The reason why I'm asking, because, we could have the same argument for Rosa Parks and Taylor Street, because they're, right, if we're gonna use that as the parameters in which we make
And
that
they're
decision.
included, I'm sorry, Councilmember, Rosa Park and Taylor is included in this as well.
Oh, okay.
So they're looking at pedestrian improvements there, so I think when that all came up, it was part of a unified planning approach, so. But I'm happy to work with you and
Right.
figure it out.
Can we also get the grass cut? I know I know
I
that,
just got a hub request about that today. It is a state route, and they had a complicated agreement with Worthen about the median maintenance, so still working on that one. Any other discussion on federal code relief funds? All right, hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. That is approved. RS 2022-1629 supports the artwork and Project Athens of the South, which will be placed on the Tennessee Department of Transportation's I-40 noise barrier located along Carroll Street, and a license agreement between the Metropolitan Government and the Tennessee Department of Transportation. And there is a substitute. And Ms. Zeitlin, was the substitute just
Just a
housekeeping?
clarification, yeah. It says a license agreement, it's actually an application for a license agreement.
Got it. All right, very good. I would accept a motion on the substitute.
Second.
Got a motion and a second?
Just showed up.
Oh, very good. Councilmember Evans, you can join us for some of our votes.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the artwork and project, how is that, who's doing that and who's paying for it and how was it? Was it done through an RFP or was there a solicitation?
I assume there was, but I will look to NDOT to explain the details of this.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Councilmember, this is actually is being driven by the community. So they have done the fundraising, and then they are putting in for the grant application to do matching funds. They can get up to $2,500 of matching funds. They've raised $2,500. And they have used a neighborhood artist over there to do the Athens of the South. And then we have been supporting them to get the application through, as well as we are doing in-kind service to get this up and off the ground.
So who's gonna maintain the artwork once it's complete? Because the elements sometimes deteriorate such.
Yes, ma'am. That's going to be a partnership between us and the neighborhood that's actually putting together the work. We're going to be maintaining mainly the right-of-way for them so it stays clear and visible. And then their artist, again, is a local artist, and he will be maintaining it throughout the years. That's the game plan at this moment.
All right, Councilmember Hurt, other questions?
Well, I'm just wondering how long of a maintenance agreement is there? I mean, also having been a part of such project, sometimes it be the responsibility of the community, and things change, people move, and they no longer are committed, and then we've got this pretty thing now, an ugly site.
And we're having that conversation. I can't speak to it today, but right now, by the grant application, they will be the ones responsible for maintaining it, and they have committed to that. But I do understand your concerns, because you and I have spoken about that in the past.
Right.
Councilmember Hurt, other questions or concerns?
That's it. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. We've got a motion and a second on the substitute. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, any against?
It's now 8.
Oh, yeah, look at that. We're getting on it. Welcome, Councilmember Henderson.
Second.
Yep. This is resolution is substitute, got a motion and a second. Any discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that is approved. We are now on to RS 2022-1631. Approves a grant from the Recycling Partnership Incorporated to the Department of Water and Sewerage Services Waste Division for the support of Metro's recycling program for strategic planning, program assessment, program implementation, and recycling education outreach. Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Councilmember Allen, I believe you had discussion.
Yeah, so my understanding is this is education for when we go to twice a month recycling, which I'm excited we're moving forward in that whole big plan. And my question is, do we have a timeline for that? Do we know when that might be occurring?
So we don't have a timeline. I mean, obviously we want to have a situation where we feel like waste collection is really stable.
Right.
But this money doesn't have to be used just for that. It can be used for any type of recycling education, to include every other week. So if for some reason it was delayed beyond the timeline of the grant, which I don't believe it will be, then we could go ahead and use that money for promoting appropriate things to go in recycling carts, that type of stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Councilmember Allen, other discussion?
That is my question. I'm done.
All right.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
just a question
Councilmember Henderson.
for Ms. Smith. I know, so this committee a few years past was going to have kind of a recycling and solid waste subcommittee around a whole lot of the, issues that we've been looking at, and I know that, we've moved to our kind of our Waste Wizard app or platform. We've done some resets on everything, but I often get a question or questions from constituents about kind of where are we on recycling, right? Because there's a whole lot of news about kind of the worldwide market, and then we changed what we recycled. But I'm finding even my constituents who I consider to be very enthusiastic about recycling are still recycling yogurt tubs, are still recycling plastic shells for salad. So I feel like we had some level of intention around our education, and I appreciate that this is an education grant, but I would kind of like to understand where we've been, like what educating have we done up to this point with what grants? Like I feel like we've kind of lost the through line a little bit on some folks. And then I have some constituents who with just perpetual challenges around getting their recycling picked up have just given up. So, I want us all to be enthusiastic boosters of that because we're gonna reach capacity on our landfill. It's very important. But I would ask, I guess, Mr. Chair or colleagues, if we could just get a recycling specific update once you kind of know how you intend to spend this grant and kind of what assessment we've done about the money that we've spent thus far and its effectiveness. Because I know we've had some partnerships with nonprofit entities. I've just been a little confused about kind of what we're doing.
That totally makes sense. Well, this is the first grant we've actually received in a while, so we're super excited about it. But I'd love to come back, maybe in a couple of months or in a month, and if we can, talk to Jim Schneider and make sure that we have some time on the beginning of the agenda or the end, just to give you all a 5 or 10 minute update on what we're looking at, what we're trying to do. Because you're absolutely right. Even though we've tried to provide a lot of information on the bottles, jars, and jugs, there's still a lot of confusion around that. One thing that, and I know many of you have met Jen Harmon, but she and I have talked about doing a postcard mailing and trying to do, some direct communication. Mailings can be more expensive, but they go to everyone. So sometimes it's just better to do something like that. And that's one thing we've also discussed with the Recycling Partnership, because they will actually help us with design if we need it. There's an element of this that is actually, hey, we've got a lot of artwork, we've got a lot of capability, we will help you guys design stuff if you need help.
Great, glad to hear it. Thank you, Chair.
All right, and we will make sure Chair Young knows about your request otherwise. All right, any other discussion on the grant from the Recycling Partnership? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are approved for that one. RS 2022-1633 requests the creation of a task force to initiate a study to determine the 5 most probable locations for potential waste transfer stations within the county, to be completed no later than July 31st, 2023. Councilmember Hall, I see you. Welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll step all the way in. So this is something really simple, and it's kind of in line with what we were just talking about. Looking at all the events over the last couple of years, all the work that's gone into and the conversations around both recycling and trash, knowing what we're dealing with and facing, and of course you guys know where I am on when it comes to landfills, but the interactions and the information from the Solid Waste Regional Board leading to other legislation has been very helpful, but we know we're facing some really large tasks here in the near future. Where is our household waste going to go, and where is our C&D waste going to go? We cannot do more landfills, but transfer stations and the opportunity to remove trash from Davidson County to other counties is a conversation that we need to be having. You just don't want to disproportionately impact anyone. And of course, again, full transparency, you're talking to someone who represents a district that has been dealing with landfills for the last 60 years. And it has devastated areas of my community, and it has a long-term and wide-ranging effect. But now we know for a fact that there are other counties who are willing to take our waste, and we also know that we're going to be dealing with the conversation around where our waste is going to go, and I'd say, you ask the experts, probably in the next 18 months. It's a serious problem that we need to get ahead of. and looking at that 30-year solid waste plan, and then what I've been trying to push for, a 10-year version of it for Metro, because they did tell us we hadn't aggressively pursued solutions. I think that's something that we have to start with. What do we need to do by looking at that plan to get to zero waste? What can we implement and as fast as possible? Part of that conversation is a series of studies, and this would just be one of the first ones, to determine what locations best suit those options that are available to us. Even when we go back to the recycling piece, they're doing everything they can do and are going to continue to do a great job. And we've started to get more and more traction around conversations, especially in the community when it comes to separating things and stuff of that nature. But we've got to start looking forward in leaps and bounds. Transfer stations is one piece. Where else they can go other than the same places, what places fit best. And that's not just based on geography, but it's based on what the study hopefully will show is physically what provides us the best opportunity to collect, move, dispose of waste, right? Knowing that counties in West Tennessee want our waste and are willing to take it, how do we get it to them? So those are the conversations we're trying to get into and get some resolve for and be able to create legislation around it. So that's basically the premise of this is just to get more information and to be very deliberate about that information because we're on a clock. And we don't want to be in a situation where a year, 2 years from now, we're negotiating or finalizing a new trash contract, but we have nowhere for it to go, regardless of who picks it up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Hall. Yes, Mr. Nash.
I guess I support what you're trying to do, but is it our job to do that? Most of these transfer stations, I believe, are privately owned. And as we collect trash, won't they be looking for other places as we move forward?
Well, in theory, they would, but from interactions with most, and in most situations similar to it, they're looking to put it in the easiest place, right? It's why you have areas who have been, like mine, who've been disproportionately hammered by it or consistently held it. And when you have so much available rural land also, Bellevue, Antioch, North Nashville, there are areas that are going to just constantly be bombarded. There's no end to the list of people that want to do something, and they're always going to go to the same sources without actually looking anywhere else. And because of that solid waste plan and the comments from that board, what we do know is we've not pursued aggressively how we're going to get to zero waste or how we're going to implement some things for the future. It does fall on us. We've got to figure out some stuff ahead of time and not wait until something actually happens and then say, okay, let's just throw 10 things on the wall and see where it sticks.
Quick follow-up. I mean, we decide we got 5 places, Public Works or Waste or Water Services finds, this is 5 places we'd recommend. But then we contract with the company and they've got 5 other places that they want to put these stations. That's what I'm saying. I'm not sure.
Well, that's still
how
going
you
to have to
coordinate.
come before this body. The public, those communities are going to determine, not those actual private owners, because they're still going to have to come to us to get it approved. And we're going to ask them the hard questions. Where else have you looked? What's your research say? What can you provide to us that is going to say we're doing the best job we can do in these places that we have currently and why these places that we're choosing make more sense? If you've been to some of the ones that we have now, or you talk to some of the haulers, they're not in the best shape. We're already feeling the impact of what's happening in Rutherford County. And if we lose a place for our household waste to go, it's not just us. It's Nashville and 14 other counties that send their waste to that one site. So everybody's going to be looking for places. Now you're into a marketplace and a competition in the wrong way because everybody's looking to dump something somewhere. So we just want to be ahead of that. How can we turn trash into energy? How can we keep certain things cleaned up? How can we separate and recycle better? All those are questions that we have to do studies and get answers for because we're going to be the ones who have to initiate some legislation to navigate that.
So I guess following on Councilmember Nash's line of inquiry, I guess I would turn to water and say, is there a comment on the viability of, what even the findings of such a task force, how Metro could use it?
Well, it's difficult to say, because the transfer station has to be connected to a landfill at some point. So, having transfer stations doesn't necessarily resolve a problem. It just means that there's a intermediary point you got to take it to, but they have to be able to take it to a landfill. It's very likely, that our waste is no longer going to go to Middle Point, that Republic will divert it to another one of their landfills, depending on what happens in Murfreesboro. I mean, we are, I guess I could say, fortunate that we have 3 transfer stations owned by 3 separate companies that own landfills. I'm not opposed to doing the research. I just want everybody to understand that building another transfer station in and of itself doesn't fix anything. It's got to be, if we're looking at where we're going to take our waste to landfill, it needs to be a company that owns and has their own landfills. If they're just contracting with somebody else and that they're at the same, basically the same situation Metro would be in, so like if Metro built their own transfer station, we would have to be finding that landfill, which is one reason why some cities and counties have transfer stations, but most of the time they have private companies that operate it, because then you know exactly where that material, they have an outlet for it, I guess is what I'm trying to say, versus just trying to figure out some place for it to go.
Well, I think to Councilmember Hall's point, I will say this from having had this discussion in District 19 over the past couple terms. It is not something that transfer stations are not much more popular than landfills in a given geography. Communities aren't generally looking to say, can you give us another transfer station? And so I think what Councilmember Hall is trying to do is say, if we had information that was saying these would be preferable sites, whether it's because of existing industrial zoning or proximity to a special site or whatever, could that be used as part of a siting scenario?
Right, and let me clarify, it's not suggesting we build transfer stations. It's to his exact point. Every community is going to view a transfer station the same way they would a landfill. And so it's going to have to come back and be approved. But it gives us an advantage in every conversation when those same handful of companies who own the same handful of landfills are choosing, and we know firsthand because of the suit that we were just in with my district in that C&D. Have you looked anywhere else? No. Why? Why should we?
Councilmember Hurt, I believe you were next.
I don't have a question, but my feeling is that we need to at least do a study to determine what we're going to do, because that landfill is going to be full, complete in just a few months. And it doesn't matter where it goes according to that community, but it's just not coming here anymore. And I think that Councilman Hall is probably being polite in trying to offer a solution and looking at transfer stations. But I think we are really looking at something that could be catastrophic if we don't properly plan it out. So I think the bottom line is what we're going to do once this extended landfill that's been extended now for 20 more years than what it was supposed to be. What's going to happen?
Well, and I think that's probably beyond the scope of the study here, but I appreciate that. Councilmember Bradford?
Thank you. So my question, there's been a lot of talk about studies to do this, to do that. I believe it was about a year ago, the council approved the creation of a special committee for recycling and solid waste. To my knowledge, that committee is not yet met. So my question is, why is it not meeting? Because the whole purpose of that committee was for us to sit down and come up with solutions for this trash problem so that we wouldn't be caught between a rock and a hard place when that landfill closed. So if we have a special committee that has been appointed and set up to research and discuss possible solutions, why is it not meeting? Does anybody know that?
Well, I don't know how to say this because I don't want to, blame somebody else, but I do know that the administration had a very hard time, and I tried to help them with a couple of the categories of, because the council members' legislation, outlines specific types of categories of people. So, for example, I was helping with the construction and demolition category. I could find nobody willing to be on the commission because it would jeopardize their ability to work with Metro. And evidently, there were other categories. So there were some people appointed, and then there was this kind of constant struggle to, find people who were in the field of whatever expertise, but knew they weren't ever going to work with Metro. So I believe
We literally had to adjust 2 positions because that was, the biggest conflict was people still wanted to be able to bid on something or do business with the city. If we come up with a solution, so now I'm excluded from participating in that solution. And so that made some people reluctant, and it just took longer than it needed to. But the purpose of that committee is, again, 30-year solid waste plan to 0, to take that 30 years and try to narrow it down as fast as possible and do what they said we had not done repeatedly, which is look at the 30-year plan and start implementing those things into Metro code ourselves so that we could get ahead of that argument, that curve. Doing studies is another way of us looking at best practices and peer review. But it's more official in the sense that it's targeted to specific things and processes that we may be able to use, as opposed to just saying, well, they're doing this in Austin or they're doing this in San Antonio, and we ask them for information and we try to duplicate it that way. This is specific, the same approach, but to specifically Davidson County, looking at us and how it would apply to us.
And I would like to suggest that you support maybe a amendment to change it from a Metro board or commission or committee to more like a ad hoc or something where we could get these experts, because there are people out there super knowledgeable, but they're not willing to give up the opportunity to work with Metro. So just a suggestion, and I've not mentioned it.
Perhaps it'd be better off if it was one of those special committees appointed by the vice mayor, like he's done in the past.
Yeah, something like that where it was not, people, these experts could come and they could provide their knowledge and expertise to Metro without having to, not work with Metro.
So we don't have anyone on Metro staff with the expertise?
Metro staff cannot be on a Metro board or commission.
No, I understand that, but just to come up with some type of solution. I mean, Councilman Bradford was talking about the committee that had been appointed, and the committee hasn't met for even there to be some discussion.
That's because all the committee members haven't been appointed yet. They weren't able to find several categories, just like Councilman Paul said, of people that were willing to even be and serve. So the committee remains at this point only partially.
Does that address your, okay. Next I had Councilmember Henderson.
Chair, I would like to move a 2-meeting deferral.
All right, we've got a motion for a 2-meeting deferral.
Second.
And a second. Appreciate that. We're going to continue to can we get other discussion?
I could just explain my intent, because I intend it to be friendly. I just feel like in following up on kind of we were bridging off our same remarks, right, about my questions to Ms. Smith and what you're trying to achieve. But I think in the midst of all this volatility, and I say it often, 3 mayors in 4 years, new council term, pandemic, we've got this new commission that we haven't even filled. This is a task force that specifically calls on 3 departments to very specifically find. I feel like we have a lot of redundancies, and I share your frustration that you're trying to get to something tangible and kind of isolate the task somewhat, and that has merit. But I think if everybody could just get on the same page, I don't know if the administration has a position or the department, but given the trash went to water and then all this, I just feel like we are. It's in my head, but I'm not going to say it. Well, I guess it will. We're betwixt and between. It is like the phrase for these years, but
Makes perfect sense. And please, I'm looking forward to it in a minute.
All right, we've got a motion for a 2-week deferral in a second.
Or 2 meetings,
Sorry,
rather.
2-meeting deferral in a second. Councilmember Cash, on the deferral or the bill resolution?
I'm sorry?
Do you want to discuss the deferral, or did you want to go back to the sponsor on the resolution? So
No. What? I had my hand up a little while ago just because I thought we were getting off track with the committee talk.
got it. All right. Do you still think that?
But I still think,
Voting
I'm in favor of the deferral.
Okay. Councilmember Nash.
I also favor the deferral, and I think part of that discussion may be rather, probably the only people that know better than we how difficult it is to cite one of these things is the companies themselves. So I wonder if we might want to say, when does this contract, when do our contracts end? When do we have to really look at who's coming on the board next? And
We have 5 more years on our disposal contract.
it probably is, I don't know if you could get different companies that we might propose. You tell us what your plans are in 5 years, and are you planning on citing new places? I mean, that's probably a question we can ask without having legislation, but I'd be very interested to see where they think, because I agree with that. We're on the edge of kind of some dramatic changes in our waste getting rid of, and we probably ought, 5 years is not too long to say, all right, where do you think we're going to be, company? All of them, any of them? I think we need input from them, because they're the folks that are ultimately going to have to cite these places and probably pay for them, and they have the connection, as you mentioned, with the landfill somewhere. I think ours would be kind of a neat academic exercise, but at the end of the day, we'll say, all right, you can maybe cite one in this region, we'd be more likely to support. I get that, I appreciate that, but I think they kind of already know some of that already, and I'd be interested to see what they think's going to happen in 5 years if we can get them to answer that question as part of this rewrite or amendments.
All right, we've got a motion for a 2-meeting deferral on the table. Any discussion on that deferral? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? The 2-meeting deferral has been amended. All right, now, I think we can take a consent agenda on bills on second reading. Anybody need to pull any of these items? All right, hearing none, I'm going to read through the captions. If you do want to pull something, just let me know. Bill 2022-1331 renames the Wego Central Public Transit Station the Metropolitan Transit Authority, located at 400 Dr. Martin L. King Jr. Boulevard, as the Elizabeth Duff Transit Center at Wego Central. Bill 2022-1332 names the North Nashville Transit Center to be located at 2521 Clarksville Highway at 26th Avenue North, under the operation of the Metropolitan Transit Authority, as the Ernest Ritt Patton North Nashville Transit Center. Bill 2022-1334 abandons alley number 708 right-of-way from Duncan Street eastward to unimproved Meriden Avenue right-of-way. Bill 2022-1335 abandons existing storm sewer lines, storm catch basins, and easement rights for 7 properties located on California Avenue, Edison Park Lane, and 57th Avenue North. Bill 2022-1336 accepts new sanitary sewer manholes for property located 500 Platform Way South. Bill 2022-1337 abandons existing public sanitary sewer main and sanitary sewer manholes to accept a new sanitary sewer manhole for property located at Pitts Avenue unnumbered. Bill 2022-1338 accepts new water and sanitary sewer mains, fire hydrant assembly, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for 4 properties located on Central Pike. Can I get a motion to approve that? Second. Can I get a motion and a second? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And we have approved bills on second reading on consent. Thank you, everybody, for your attendance and participation. That concludes the Transportation Infrastructure Committee.
Sorry, I was late.
That's okay. Appreciate it.
Great job of substituting.